Can I share this table? The 6-year-old's voice barely rose above a whisper. Her tiny crutches trembled against the diner floor. Her left pant leg hung empty below the knee. Tears streamed down hollow cheeks as she stood before the most terrifying man in the room, a scarred biker covered in prison tattoos, his leather vest marking him as a Hell's Angel. She had already been rejected by every table. The young family pulled their children away. The church women whispered judgments. The elderly couple pretended she didn't exist. Now she had nowhere left to go. The biker looked up from his burger. What he saw in her eyes made his blood run cold. Sit down, kid. You hungry? That single yes would expose a darkness so evil it would bring an entire criminal empire crashing down. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and follow Mila and Jace's story to the very end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The bell above the door chimed at 2:47 on a Saturday afternoon, and Denise Warren looked up from the coffee pot she was refilling. 32 years she'd worked at the Copper Kettle. 32 years of watching people come and go through that door. She thought she'd seen everything. She was wrong. The little girl who stepped inside moved like someone had taught her that existing was an inconvenience. Tiny aluminum crutches supported her thin frame. Her right leg bore all her weight, while her left pant leg hung empty, pinned up below where her knee should have been. 6 years old, maybe. Hollow cheeks. Eyes that darted around the room like a rabbit searching for the fox. Denise's hand tightened on the coffee pot. "Lord have mercy," she whispered. The diner was packed. Saturday afternoon meant every booth was full, every table occupied with the regular crowd of Cedar Ridge, Tennessee. Population 4,200. The kind of place where everybody knew everybody's business, and strangers stood out like a sore thumb. This child was definitely a stranger. Tap, scrape, tap, scrape. The sound cut through the comfortable noise of clinking silverware and easy conversation. Heads turned. Voices lowered. That uncomfortable silence that happens when people see something they don't want to acknowledge but can't quite look away from. The girl stopped at the first booth. A young couple sat there with their daughter, a girl about the same age, pink bow in her hair, chocolate milkshake in front of her. The kind of picture-perfect family that belonged on a Christmas card. "Excuse me." The little girl's voice was barely a whisper. "Can I sit here? I'm really tired." The mother's reaction was instant. Her arm shot out, pulling her daughter closer. Her eyes swept over the child's crutches, her empty pant leg, her worn clothes. "We're having family time," she said. "Not mean exactly, just cold. Final." The father didn't even look up from his phone. The little girl on crutches nodded like she'd expected this. Like rejection was so familiar it barely registered anymore. She turned away, her crutches squeaking against the floor. Tap, scrape, tap, scrape. She approached the second table. 3 men in golf shirts probably just finished 18 holes at the country club, laughing about something beers half finished in front of them. "Sir," her voice cracked. "Can I please sit down just for a minute?" One of them glanced at her, then looked at his friends with raised eyebrows. Something passed between them. An unspoken agreement. "Sorry, kid. We're in a meeting." They weren't in a meeting. They were drinking beer and talking about golf. But lying was easier than helping. The girl's shoulders dropped another inch. Tap, scrape, tap, scrape. Denise watched from behind the counter, her chest tight. She should do something. She knew she should do something. But the lunch rush wasn't over, and she had 6 tables waiting for refills, and getting involved in other people's business had never been her strong suit. Someone'll help her, she muttered to herself. Someone always does. But nobody did. The girl reached the third table. 4 women probably in their 60s dressed in their Sunday best, even though it was Saturday. Floral prints, pearl necklaces, Bibles stacked neatly beside their sweet teas. They'd probably just come from the women's auxiliary meeting at First Baptist. "Ma'am," the little girl's voice shook now. Her right leg trembled with exhaustion. "Please, can I just rest for a minute? I walked really far." One of the women leaned toward the others, her hand cupping her mouth like she was sharing state secrets. "Where do you suppose her parents are?" she said, loud enough to hear, loud enough to hurt. Another woman clucked her tongue. "Some people shouldn't have children if they can't take care of them." The third woman was already pulling out her phone. "Should we call someone? This seems like a situation." Not one of them looked directly at the child. Not one of them offered her a seat. Not one of them asked if she was okay. The little girl's face crumpled. Just for a second. Then she rebuilt it brick by brick into something harder. Something that knew better than to expect kindness from strangers. Tap. Scrape. Tap. Scrape. She passed the elderly couple who'd been married 53 years and coming to this diner every Saturday since it opened. They suddenly found their meatloaf fascinating. She passed the table of teenagers who were too absorbed in their phones to notice the world around them. She passed the single mom with 3 kids who had her own problems and couldn't take on anyone else's. Table after table. Rejection after rejection. And then she reached the back corner. Jace Holloway had chosen this seat for a reason. Back to the wall. Clear view of every entrance. Years of survival instinct didn't disappear just because you were eating meatloaf. 45 years old, 6'3", 240 pounds of muscle earned in prison yards and construction sites. His arms were sleeved in ink that told stories he'd never speak out loud, a timeline of mistakes and survival etched permanently into his skin. A scar split his face from temple to jaw, courtesy of a knife fight in Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary 15 years ago. His nose had been broken 4 times, and his knuckles were scarred white from decades of defending himself against men who thought violence was conversation. But it was the vest that made people cross the street. Black leather worn soft with age. The Iron Wolves MC insignia stitched across the back. Patches that meant things to people who understood that world and meant dangerous to everyone else. He'd earned every single one of them, some with blood, some with loyalty, all with years of living a life most people couldn't imagine. He was the president of the Cedar Ridge chapter, had been for 12 years. Before that, he'd been a lot of things: soldier, convict, lost cause. Now he was just a man who wanted to eat his lunch in peace. He heard her coming before he saw her. Tap. Scrape. Tap. Scrape. He looked up from his newspaper. His burger sat half-eaten beside his coffee. He watched as the tiny figure made her way toward him, crutches working overtime, face set with determination, even as her leg shook with exhaustion. She stopped at his table. Their eyes met. Jace had stared down gang leaders, federal agents, men with guns who meant to kill him. But something in this child's eyes made his chest tight in a way he hadn't felt in years. "Mr. Her voice was barely audible. A whisper wrapped in exhaustion and hope that was almost gone. "Can I share this table?" She swallowed hard. Everyone else said no. The diner had gone quiet. Jace could feel the eyes on them. The whole room was watching now, waiting to see what the scary biker would do, probably expecting him to growl at her, chase her away, confirm every assumption they'd ever made about men like him. Jace set down his burger. "Everyone else is an idiot," he said. "Sit down, kid." Her whole body sagged with relief. She maneuvered herself into the booth across from him, leaning her crutches against the wall, wincing as she finally took weight off her trembling leg. "Thank you." She said it like he'd given her a kidney, not a seat. Jace studied her. Tangled hair that hadn't seen a brush in days. Clothes that were clean but worn thin. Cheekbones too sharp for a child her age. And those eyes, brown, huge, carrying weight no 6-year-old should know existed. "When's the last time you ate?" he asked. She thought about it. "I had some crackers. Yesterday, I think." Yesterday. Jace's jaw tightened. He raised his hand. "Denise!" The waitress appeared like she'd been summoned by God himself. "What can I get you, Jace?" "Whatever she wants, on my tab." Denise looked at the little girl, guilt flickering across her face. "What would you like, sweetheart?" The girl stared at the menu on the table like it was written in a foreign language. Like choosing was a skill she'd never learned. I don't know what I'm allowed to have." Something cold settled in Jace's gut. Kids didn't talk like that unless someone had taught them that everything came with conditions. "You're allowed to have whatever you want," he said, keeping his voice steady. "Burger, chicken, fingers, pancakes. They make good pancakes here." Her eyes went wide. "Pancakes for lunch." "Kid, you can have pancakes at midnight if you want. Rules are suggestions." For the first time since she'd walked in, something like a smile flickered across her face. Just a ghost of one. But it was there. "Pancakes, please, with the stuff on top. The syrup." Denise nodded quickly and hurried away, probably grateful to escape the intensity of the moment. Jace leaned back in his booth, arms crossed. The girl sat across from him, impossibly small, looking at his tattoos with curiosity instead of fear. "What's your name, kid?" "Mila." "Mila." He nodded. "I'm Jace. Where are your parents?" The change was instant. Her whole body went rigid. Her eyes dropped to the table. Her small hands curled into fists. "Mommy's at home," she whispered. "With him." "Him. Derek." She said the name like it tasted rotten. "He's not my daddy. He just says he is." Jace's eyes narrowed. He'd known a lot of men named Derek in his life. None of them had been good news. "Where's your real daddy?" "I don't have one." Her voice was matter-of-fact, like she'd accepted this reality long ago. "It's just been me and Mommy, until she met Derek. Then everything got bad." So Denise appeared with pancakes, stacked high butter melting down the side syrup in a little pitcher on the plate. She set them down in front of Mila, who stared at them like they might disappear if she blinked. "Go ahead," Jace said. "Eat." She didn't need to be told twice. She grabbed the fork and started eating with the desperate efficiency of someone who'd learned that food could be taken away at any moment. Jace watched her, his coffee growing cold, his appetite completely gone. Something was very wrong here. "Mila." He kept his voice gentle, which wasn't easy for him. "How'd you get to this diner?" "I walked." "From where?" She pointed vaguely out the window. "The White House, on Miller Road. It's far." Jace knew Miller Road. It was at least 2 miles from here. 2 miles on crutches in February, wearing nothing but a thin jacket. "Why'd you leave?" She stopped eating. The fork hovered over her plate. Her eyes stayed fixed on the pancakes. "Derek was drinking. He gets mean when he drinks. He started yelling at Mommy. She told me to go hide in my room, but I heard..." She trailed off. Her lower lip trembled. "I heard the sound, the hitting sound, and Mommy crying, and then Derek said he was gonna..." She looked up at Jace, and the terror in her eyes made his blood run cold. He said he was going to teach me a lesson next, about bothering grown-ups. Jace's hands curled into fists under the table. So you ran. The window in my room doesn't lock anymore. Derek broke it when he got mad at me for crying too loud. She said it like it was normal, like broken windows and broken promises were just part of life. I climbed out and I walked and I walked and I got so tired and I thought maybe someone would help me, but nobody wanted to, and then I saw you and you looked scary. But you were the only one who didn't look away when you saw me coming and... She stopped. Drew a shaky breath. I'm sorry. Mommy says I talk too much. Your mommy's wrong. Your mommy's... Jace's voice was rough. You can talk as much as you want. She stared at him, like she couldn't quite believe he was real. Why are you being nice to me? Because someone should be. Her eyes welled with tears. She blinked them back hard the same way she'd probably been doing for years. The same way kids learned to do when crying made things worse instead of better. Mila. Jace leaned forward, his scarred face softening as much as it could. Has Derek ever hurt you? She went very still. It's okay, he said quietly. Whatever you tell me, I'm not going to let anything bad happen to you. I promise. She looked at him for a long moment, weighing his words, deciding if she could trust this stranger with the face like a nightmare and the voice like gravel. Then slowly, she reached down and pulled up her sleeve. Jace had seen a lot of things in his 45 years. War, prison, violence that would haunt most people's nightmares. He'd thought nothing could shock him anymore. He was wrong. The bruises on Mila's thin arm were purple and black and yellow layers of damage in various stages of healing. Finger marks clearly visible. Grip bruises from someone grabbing hard enough to leave prints. He holds me when I try to run, she said quietly. Sometimes he burns me too, with his cigarettes, when I don't be quiet like he says. She turned her arm over. On the soft skin of her inner forearm were 3 circular scars. Burns. Deliberate and unmistakable. Jace couldn't speak. For a moment, the whole world narrowed to those scars, to this child who'd been marked like property to the monster who'd done this to her, while her mother watched, and the whole town looked the other way. My leg. Mila continued, her voice flat, now detached, like she was reciting someone else's story. I was born this way. Derek says it's why nobody wants me. He says I'm defective. He says Mommy should have thrown me away when she had the chance, but she was too stupid, so now he's stuck with me. Something broke inside Jace's chest. Something that had been carefully locked away for a very long time. Listen to me. His voice shook, which never happened. You are not defective. You are not something to throw away. Derek is the broken one. Derek is the monster, not you. Do you understand me? She stared at him with those huge brown eyes. You really believe that? I know it, and before this day is over, he's gonna know it too. For a moment, hope flickered in her face. Then it died, snuffed out by experience. Grown-ups always say they'll help, she whispered. Then they don't. They say they'll call the police, but Derek's cousin is the police. They say they'll talk to someone, but Derek knows everyone. He's important. He has money. Nobody ever does anything. Jace leaned closer. His voice dropped low. I'm not everyone, and the people I call, they don't give a damn about Derek's money. He pulled out his phone, hit the speed dial for a number he rarely used anymore. Brick, it's Jace. I need you at the Copper Kettle, now. Bring Doc. Bring Preacher. Bring whoever's at the clubhouse. He paused, listening. Yeah, it's that serious. We got a situation. The kind we talked about. He hung up. Mila watched him with confusion. Who's Brick? A friend of mine. He's gonna help. Why would your friend help me? He doesn't even know me. Jace looked at her. This tiny warrior who'd walked 2 miles on crutches to escape a nightmare, who'd been rejected by every table in a room full of people who'd somehow found the courage to approach the scariest man in the diner because he was the only one who didn't look away. "Because that's what we do," he said. "We help people who don't have anyone else." 15 minutes later, the rumble of motorcycles shook the diner's windows. One by one, they pulled into the parking lot. 7 bikes. 7 men. Black leather vests with the Iron Wolves insignia patches that meant they'd earned their place through loyalty and time and blood. The diner went silent. People shifted in their booths, suddenly very interested in their food, suddenly very careful not to make eye contact with anyone. The door swung open. Brick came in first. 6'5", built like a tank, dark skin covered in military tattoos. 20 years, Army 2 tours in Afghanistan, 3 Bronze Stars, and a lifetime of nightmares he never talked about. He'd found the Iron Wolves after the VA failed him, and he'd never left. Behind him came Doc, real name Marcus, retired trauma surgeon, gray beard, steady hands that had saved hundreds of lives in the ER before he got tired of watching people die from violence he couldn't prevent. Then Preacher, lean and weathered, 62 years old, spent 20 years as a homicide detective before corruption in his department made him walk away. He'd seen everything humans could do to each other, and it had stripped away any illusions about justice. Mama Rose came last. She wasn't a biker, not technically, but she'd been part of the Iron Wolves family for 30 years. She ran the women's shelter on the edge of town, the only safe place for miles for women trying to escape men who wanted to kill them. They crossed the diner in formation. The other customers pressed back in their seats, fear evident on their faces. The church women clutched their Bibles tighter. The golf club men suddenly had somewhere else to be. Brick reached Jace's table first. His eyes went to Mila, then back to his president. "This her?" Jace nodded once. Brick crouched down to Mila's level. His massive frame should have been terrifying, but his voice was soft as silk. "Hey there, little one. I'm Brick. I heard you've had a pretty rough day." Mila pressed closer to Jace, but she didn't run, didn't scream, just watched this mountain of a man with wary curiosity. "You're big," she said. Brick smiled. "I get that a lot. You know what else I am? What? Hungry. Those pancakes any good?" Mila looked at her plate, looked back at Brick. Something loosened in her expression. "They're really good. They have the syrup. Man, I love syrup." Brick slid into the booth next to Jace, giving Mila space. The others arranged themselves around the table, creating a wall of leather and muscle between this child and the rest of the world. Doc leaned forward. "Mila, my name is Marcus. My friends call me Doc because I used to be a doctor. Would it be okay if I looked at your arm? Jace said you might have some boo-boos that need checking." Mila looked at Jace. "It's okay," he said. "Doc's good people. He helped patch me up more times than I can count." Slowly, she extended her arm. Doc's face stayed carefully neutral as he examined the bruises, the burns. But Jace had known him for 15 years. He saw the muscle jumping in his jaw, the way his hands trembled slightly before he steadied them. "Sweetheart, I need to see your back too. Can you show me?" Mila hesitated. Then she turned around and lifted her shirt. Mama Rose made a sound like someone had punched her in the stomach. Brick's hands curled into fists. Preacher pulled out a small notebook and started writing. Jace didn't need to see what they were looking at. Their reactions told him everything. "How long, baby?" Mama Rose asked, gently reaching out to lower Mila's shirt back down. How long has he been hurting you? Mila thought about it. Since Mommy and me moved in with him. I was 4, I think. It's hard to remember before. 2 years. Preacher's voice was flat, dangerous. This has been going on for 2 years. Why didn't anyone help? Brick asked, directing the question to no one in particular. Teachers, doctors, neighbors. Derek is careful, Mila said quietly. He only hurts where clothes cover. And when Mommy tried to tell someone once Derek's cousin came to our house, the sheriff, he told Mommy that if she ever lied about Derek again, he'd make sure I got taken away and she'd never see me. Sheriff Wayne Vance, Preacher said. He was writing faster now. Derek Vance's cousin. I remember that piece of work. He was dirty 30 years ago when I was still on the job. Glad to see nothing's changed. So the cops are in on it, Brick said. Child services. Derek's lawyer got every report buried, Mila said. She spoke like she was repeating something she'd overheard. Mommy said so. She said we were trapped. She said there was no way out. There's always a way out, Jace said. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute certainty. Sometimes you just need the right people to help you find it. He looked around at his brothers and sisters, these people who'd built their lives on the margins who society had judged and dismissed and feared. These people who understood that sometimes the system was the enemy, and justice had to be taken by those willing to fight for it. What's the play, Prez? Brick asked. Jace's jaw tightened. Doc, I need medical documentation. Everything you can photograph, measure, record. I want evidence that will hold up in any court. Already on it. Doc was pulling out his phone. Preacher, contact your friend at the state AG's office, the one who's been looking for a way into Cedar Ridge for years. Tell her Christmas came early. On it. Mama Rose, get the shelter ready. Mila's mother is still in that house. We're going to get her out. I'll make the calls. Brick. Jace met his sergeant-at-arms eyes. Find out everything about Derek Vance. Every business deal. Every property. Every dollar that doesn't add up. If this guy's as connected as it sounds, he didn't get that way by being clean. Brick nodded. Mila watched all of this with wide eyes. You're really going to help? She asked. All of you? Mama Rose crouched down beside her. Her weathered hands cupped Mila's face gently. Baby girl, let me tell you something. Every single person at this table has known what it feels like to be thrown away, to be told they're worthless, to have nobody believe them when they needed help most. She smiled softly. That's why we found each other. And that's why when we see someone like you, someone brave enough to walk 2 miles on crutches just to find safety, we don't look away. We stand up. Mila's lip trembled. But Derek is scary. He hurts people. And he knows everyone. Brick leaned forward with a grin that showed too many teeth. Little one, let me tell you something about Scary. Derek Vance has money. He has a corrupt sheriff cousin. He has lawyers and connections and all the things that make small people feel big. He cracked his knuckles. But he ain't never messed with the Iron Wolves. And after today, he's gonna wish he'd never touched you. 30 minutes later, Jace stood at the diner's window watching the street. Doc was in the back completing his documentation. Preacher was on the phone with the AG's office. Mama Rose was sitting with Mila braiding her tangled hair while telling her stories about butterflies and brave little girls who changed the world. Brick appeared at Jace's shoulder. Intel's coming in. And Derek Vance, 41, real estate developer, owns half the commercial property in Cedar Ridge, including 3 strip malls and an apartment complex on the east side. Brick's voice was low. But that's just the legit stuff. Word is he's been running prescription pills through those properties for years. Fake pharmacies in the strip malls. Distribution center in the apartment basement. Big money. Sheriff knows. Sheriff's in on it. Has been from the start. That's why no one can touch Derek. He's got the law in his pocket. Jace's expression didn't change, but his eyes went cold. Who else? Still digging. But there's whispers about something bigger. Someone above Derek who's calling the shots. Federal interest, maybe. Preacher's contact is going to want to hear this. The door opened. A man in his 30s walked in, wearing a Cedar Ridge Sheriff's Department uniform. Deputy's badge on his chest. He looked around the diner until his eyes landed on Mila. Well, well, there she is. The whole room went tense. The deputy swaggered toward their table, hand resting on his belt like he was walking into a bar in a bad Western movie. Hey there, sweetie. Your daddy's been looking everywhere for you. Let's get you home. Mila shrank back, pressing against Mama Rose. Her face had gone white. He's not my daddy. Now don't be difficult. The deputy reached for her arm. Derek's real worried. Come on, let's... A hand closed around the deputy's wrist. Brick's hand. The deputy froze. She said he's not her daddy. Brick's voice was pleasant enough, but his grip tightened until the deputy winced. Which means you're trying to take a child to someone who's not her legal guardian. That's kidnapping, ain't it, Preacher? Preacher didn't look up from his phone. Sure sounds like it to me. The deputy's face flushed red. You think you bikers can interfere with official police business? I've got the authority to... To what? Jace stepped forward, his voice cutting through like a blade. Drag a 6-year-old girl back to a house where she's been beaten and burned for 2 years. We've got photographs, deputy. Medical documentation. Your cousin's been torturing a child and you're here to help him cover it up. The deputy's eyes darted around the room. Other customers were watching now. Some had their phones out. This is a family matter. Internal affairs. State Attorney General's office is very interested in Cedar Ridge's internal affairs, Preacher said calmly, still writing in his notebook. In fact, I just got off the phone with Assistant A.G. Martinez. She's sending someone down personally. Should be here by morning. The deputy's face went from red to white. You can't. Derek's gonna what? Brick released his wrist. Go ahead and run back to tell him. Tell him the Iron Wolves have the girl. Tell him we're not afraid of his lawyers or his money or his badge-wearing lackeys. Tell him if he so much as thinks about coming near this child again, we'll make sure every federal agency from here to Washington knows about every pill he's pushed and every dollar he's laundered. The deputy stumbled backward. You're making a mistake, he said. Derek Vance has friends everywhere. Powerful friends. You have no idea who you're messing with. Jace smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Neither does he. The deputy fled. The diner erupted in whispers. The churchwomen were praying now, probably asking forgiveness for failing to help when they had the chance. The elderly couple was leaving money on their table, hurrying out the door. The young family with the little girl in the pink bow was staring at Mila with something that might have been shame. Jace turned back to his people. Clock's ticking. Preacher, I need everything expedited. Doc, finish your documentation. Brick, get me an address on Derek's current location. What about Mila's mother? Mama Rose asked. Jace looked at the little girl, still pressed against Mama Rose's side, watching him with those huge eyes. Mila, I need you to be brave for me. Can you do that? She nodded solemnly. I need you to tell us everything you know about where your mommy is right now. The more you can tell us, the faster we can help her. Mila's hands twisted in her lap. She's at home. Derek doesn't let her leave when he's drinking. He locks all the doors and takes her phone. But... She hesitated. There's a window. In the laundry room. Derek forgot to put locks on it because he never goes in there. Mommy showed it to me. She said if things ever got really bad, that's how we could get out. That's perfect. Jace crouched down to her level, his scarred face softening. You did so good, Mila. You're the bravest kid I've ever met. Braver than you? The question surprised a laugh out of him. Way braver than me? I never walked 2 miles on crutches when I was 6. She almost smiled. Almost. Is Mommy gonna be okay? Jace looked at Brick. A silent conversation passed between them. We're gonna do everything we can, he said. That's a promise. Outside, the rumble of more motorcycles filled the street. The Iron Wolves were gathering. Word had spread. Brothers from the next county. Sisters from the Women's Auxiliary. Friends of friends who'd heard something was happening and wanted to help. Within an hour, there were 20 bikes in the parking lot. Jace stood on the diner's porch, looking at the faces of people who'd built their lives outside the system. Outcasts and misfits and broken people who'd found family in each other. Most of you know why we're here, he said. A 6-year-old girl walked 2 miles today to escape a house where she's been tortured for 2 years. Her mother is still trapped there. The sheriff's department is compromised. The system has failed this family in every way possible. He let that sink in. Tonight we're going to correct that failure. Brick's team will extract the mother. Mama Rose's people will secure safe housing. Doc and Preacher will coordinate with state authorities. The rest of you. His eyes swept the crowd. We need eyes everywhere. Derek Vance is connected. And when he finds out we're coming for him, he's going to try to run. He won't get far, someone called out. No, Jace agreed. He won't. Inside the diner, Mila watched through the window as the man who'd given her a seat when nobody else would stood before an army of leather and chrome and fierce determination. Mama Rose, she asked quietly. Yes, baby. Is this real? Mama Rose pulled her closer. This is as real as it gets, sweetheart. Sometimes when everything seems darkest, that's when the light shows up. You just have to be brave enough to ask for help. I almost didn't, Mila whispered. I almost gave up before I got to his table. But you didn't. But I didn't. Mama Rose kissed the top of her head. That's why you're gonna be just fine. You've got a fighter's heart, just like your new family. Outside, engines roared to life, and somewhere across town, a monster named Derek Vance had no idea that his world was about to come crashing down around him. All because a 6-year-old girl asked to share a table with a biker. The sun had dropped below the tree line when Brick pulled his motorcycle to a stop 3 blocks from Derek Vance's house on Miller Road. Behind him, 2 more bikes killed their engines. Tank and Rico brothers who'd done extractions before, who knew how to move quiet and think fast. Brick pulled out his phone and dialed Jace. We're in position. White House green shutters just like the kid said. Truck's in the driveway. He's home. What about the mother? No visual yet. Curtains are drawn. But there's movement inside. Shadows passing the windows. How many? Hard to tell. At least 2. Maybe 3. Jace's voice went hard. 3 means he's got company. Could be the deputy. Could be someone else. Could be trouble. Can you handle it? Brick looked at Tank and Rico. Both men nodded. We can handle anything. Then get her out, whatever it takes. Brick hung up and turned to his brothers. You heard the man. Tank, you take the back. Rico, you're with me on the laundry room window. We move in 5. What about Derek? Rico asked. Brick's jaw tightened. If he gets in the way, he becomes a problem, and I solve problems. Back at the diner, Mila was falling asleep. She'd fought it for hours, her eyes snapping open every time they started to close, her body jerking awake at every sudden sound. But exhaustion was winning. 2 miles on crutches. Years of fear. One impossible day that had turned everything upside down. Mama Rose had moved her to a booth in the corner, away from the windows, wrapped in a blanket someone had brought from the clubhouse. Doc sat nearby, pretending to read a newspaper, but really watching her, breathing her color, the way her hands still twitched even in sleep. "She's gonna need therapy," he said quietly to Jace. "Years of it. The physical damage will heal. The rest..." He shook his head. "That takes longer. She'll get whatever she needs." "You sound pretty sure about that." Jace watched the little girl sleep, her face finally peaceful for the first time since she'd walked through that door. "I'm sure." Preacher approached, phone in hand. "A.G. Martinez is sending a team. They'll be here by midnight. She's been building a case against the Vance operation for 2 years, but couldn't get anyone local to cooperate. Said our call was the break she's been waiting for." "What does she need from us?" "Everything we've got. Doc's medical documentation. Mila's testimony when she's ready. And..." Preacher hesitated. "She wants the mother. Sarah. Says her testimony could blow the whole thing open. Apparently Derek's been using her to sign documents, move money. She knows where all the bodies are buried." "Figuratively. Let's hope so." Jace's phone buzzed. Brick's name on the screen. "Talk to me." "We've got a problem, Prez." Sarah Mitchell heard the footsteps before she saw them. Heavy boots on hardwood. Derek's boots. Coming down the hallway toward the bedroom where she'd been locked for the past 6 hours, ever since Mila had disappeared and Derek had started drinking, and everything had spiraled into the familiar nightmare she'd been living for 2 years. The door crashed open. Derek filled the doorway. 6'1", 200 pounds, expensive clothes, now rumpled and stained with whiskey. His face was red, his eyes bloodshot, his hands curled into fists. "Where is she?" Sarah pressed herself against the headboard. "I don't know. I told you I don't know. She must have..." "Don't lie to me." He crossed the room in 3 steps and grabbed her hair, yanking her head back. "That deputy just called. Said a bunch of bikers have her at some diner. Said they're talking to the state attorney general. Said they have pictures." Sarah's heart stopped. Pictures. They had pictures. "Derek, please." "You told her, didn't you?" His grip tightened. "You told her how to get out. That window in the laundry room. You've been planning this." "No, I swear I didn't." He hit her. Open palm across the face, hard enough to make her ears ring. She'd learned not to scream years ago. Screaming made it worse. 2 years. Derek's voice was deadly calm now, which was somehow more terrifying than the shouting. 2 years I've kept you, fed you, put a roof over your head and that crippled kid's head. And this is how you repay me." "She's not crippled," Sarah whispered. "She's perfect." He hit her again. "She's a liability. She always has been. I told you that from the start. Should have gotten rid of her when we had the chance." Sarah's vision swam. Blood trickled from her lip. But something had changed in the past 6 hours. Something had shifted. Her daughter was out. Her daughter had escaped. Her daughter was with people who were fighting for her. For the first time in 2 years, Sarah had something she'd forgotten existed. Hope. "You can hit me all you want," she said. Her voice shook, but she didn't look away. "It doesn't matter anymore. She's gone. She's safe. And whatever happens to me, you can't hurt her again." Derek stared at her like she'd grown a second head. "You think you've won?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think some bikers are gonna save you? I own this town. I own the sheriff. I own judges and lawyers and people you've never even heard of. By tomorrow morning, that kid will be back in this house, those bikers will be in jail, and you..." He leaned close, his whiskey breath hot on her face. "You're gonna wish you'd never been born." The doorbell rang. Derek froze. It rang again. Then a knock. Heavy, insistent. Derek Vance, Cedar Ridge Sheriff's Department. We need to speak with you. Sarah's heart sank. The Sheriff's Department. Wayne. Derek's cousin. Coming to help clean up the mess. Derek smiled. See, that's how this works. The cavalry arrives. He released her hair and stepped back, straightening his shirt. Stay here. Don't make a sound. This will all be over soon. He left the room, closing the door behind him. Sarah heard the lock click. She waited until his footsteps faded down the stairs. Then she moved. The window. The laundry room window. She'd shown Mila, but she'd never tried it herself. She'd never had the courage. But now, with her daughter safe and hope burning in her chest for the first time in years, she had to try. Downstairs, Derek opened the front door with his most charming smile, already in place. Wayne, thank God you're here. Listen about what that deputy said. The smile died. It wasn't Wayne. 3 men stood on his porch. Big men. Men in leather vests with patches he recognized from news stories and whispered warnings. Men who looked at him like he was already dead and just didn't know it yet. Derek Vance, the biggest one, spoke. Dark-skinned military tattoos, eyes like granite. Derek tried to slam the door. He wasn't fast enough. Brick caught it with one hand and pushed it open so hard Derek stumbled backward into his own hallway. I asked you a question. Brick stepped inside. Tank and Rico flanked him. Are you Derek Vance? This is private property. You can't just... Yeah, see, we're not real good with property rights. Brick looked around the hallway, then back at Derek. Where's Sarah? I don't know what you're talking about. Wrong answer. Brick moved faster than a man his size should have been able to move. His hand closed around Derek's throat and shoved him against the wall. Let me explain something to you, Brick said, his voice almost conversational. Right now there's a 6-year-old girl at the Copper Kettle Diner. She's got bruises on her arms and cigarette burns on her skin and trauma that's going to take years to heal. Your handiwork. Derek's face was turning red. I want my lawyer. Your lawyer can't help you. The state AG is already on her way. Federal interest has been expressed. By tomorrow morning, every agency in Tennessee is going to be crawling through your life. Brick smiled. But that's tomorrow. Right now it's just us. And I'm only going to ask one more time. Where is Sarah? Derek's eyes darted to the ceiling. Just for a second. But Brick caught it. Upstairs, Rico, go. Rico took the stairs 3 at a time. Tank stayed by the door, watching the street. Brick released Derek's throat just enough to let him breathe. You're making a mistake, Derek gasped. You have no idea who I work for. The people above me will throw you under the bus the second things get hot. That's how people like that operate. You're a tool to them, a useful idiot. And useful idiots are expendable. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. Rico appeared on the landing, his face grim. So, she's not up there. Bedroom's empty. But the window's open. Brick's eyes snapped to Derek. Where would she go? Derek laughed. Actually laughed. You think she ran Sarah? She doesn't have the spine. She's probably hiding in a closet somewhere, waiting for me to tell her it's okay to come out. Brick hit him. Not hard enough to knock him out. Just hard enough to make his point. You don't talk about her like that. You don't talk about either of them like that ever again. His phone buzzed. Jace. Brick report. Target secured. Mother's not here. Rico says she went out a window. She's running. Find her. On it. Brick looked at Tank. Stay with this piece of garbage. Rico, you're with me. What about the sheriff? Derek slurred through his bleeding lip. Wayne's on his way. Wayne's a little busy right now. Brick was already heading for the door. Seems someone reported suspicious activity at his house. Something about falsified police reports and evidence tampering. State police are probably there right now. Derek's face went white. You can't. Already did. Welcome to your worst nightmare, Derek. It's just getting started. Sarah ran. She didn't know where she was going. Didn't have a plan. She'd climbed out that laundry room window and dropped into the backyard and started moving, putting one foot in front of the other, getting as far from that house as her legs would carry her. Her face throbbed where Derek had hit her. Her ribs ached from last week when he'd kicked her for burning dinner. Every breath hurt. But she kept running. Miller Road was dark. No streetlights out here, just the occasional porch light from houses set back from the road. She stayed in the shadows, flinching at every car that passed, convinced each one was Derek coming to drag her back. She'd made it maybe half a mile when she heard the motorcycles. 2 of them coming up fast behind her. She dove off the road into someone's bushes, pressing herself flat against the ground, trying to disappear. The bikes slowed. Stopped. Sarah Mitchell. She didn't move. Didn't breathe. Ma'am, my name is Brick. I'm with the Iron Wolves MC. We have your daughter. Sarah's whole body went rigid. She's safe. She's at the Copper Kettle Diner with our people. She's been asking for you. It could be a trick. Derek was clever. He could have paid these men, sent them to find her, bring her back. She told us about the laundry room window. She told us you showed it to her. You're the one who gave her a way out. Sarah's eyes stung with tears. Ma'am, I know you're scared. I know you've got no reason to trust strangers, but I promise you on my life, on everything I believe in, we're here to help. Your daughter needs you. Will you come with us? Slowly, painfully, Sarah pushed herself up from the bushes. Her clothes were torn. Her face was swelling. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman who'd been beaten down for years and was finally fighting her way back up. Brick's expression softened when he saw her. Jesus. Rico, call Doc. Tell him we've got another patient. Sarah's voice was hoarse. Mila, is she really okay? She's more than okay. She's the bravest kid I've ever met. Walked 2 miles on crutches to find help. Sarah covered her mouth with her hand. That's my girl. That's my brave girl. Yeah, it is. Now let's get you to her. He helped her onto the back of his bike. She'd never ridden a motorcycle before. Had never done a lot of things before Derek had made her world so small. As they pulled away, she looked back at the road she'd run down, at the darkness she was leaving behind. She didn't look back again. Mila was awake when they arrived. She'd heard the bikes and shot upright, the blanket falling from her shoulders, her eyes wide and searching. Is that... The diner door opened. Sarah stepped inside. For a moment, mother and daughter just stared at each other. Sarah's face was bruised and swelling. Mila's was tear-streaked and exhausted. They'd both been through hell separately and together, and now here they were, on the other side. Mommy! Sarah was across the diner in 3 steps, falling to her knees in front of the booth, pulling her daughter into her arms. Baby, my baby, I'm here. I'm here. Mommy, I was so scared. I didn't want to leave you, but he was going to hurt me, and you said if things got really bad to use the window, and you did exactly right. Sarah was crying now, holding Mila like she might disappear. You were so brave. So brave. The scary man saved me. The one with all the tattoos. He gave me pancakes. Sarah looked up at Jace, who stood a few feet away watching the reunion with an expression he couldn't quite name. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know who you are or why you helped her, but thank you. Jace shook his head. Don't thank me yet. We've still got work to do. Doc moved forward, medical kit in hand. Sarah, I need to look at those injuries. We're building a case against Derek, and documentation is whatever you need. Sarah didn't let go of Mila, but she turned so Doc could see her face. Whatever helps put him away, I'll do it. Preacher pulled up a chair. I hate to do this right now, but we're running out of time. The AG's team will be here in a few hours. They're going to want to know everything. About Derek, about his operation, about who else is involved. Sarah's grip on Mila tightened. If I talk, he'll kill me. He's told me that 100 times. He knows people. Dangerous people. Those people are about to have their own problems, Preacher said. The whole network is coming down. Derek, the sheriff, everyone connected to them. But we need your testimony to make sure they stay down. I don't know everything. He didn't tell me details. But you know something. Sarah hesitated. I know about the properties, the strip malls where the pills come through. I know about the apartment complex where they package everything. I know... She swallowed hard. I know about the offshore accounts. He made me sign papers, tax documents, things I didn't understand. Preacher's eyes lit up. That's called money laundering, Sarah, and that's federal. Will that help? That'll help put him away for the rest of his life. Mila tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mommy, does this mean we don't have to go back? Sarah pulled her closer. We're never going back. Ever. Promise, I promise, baby. Whatever happens, I will never let him hurt you again. 2 hours later, the AG's advance team arrived. Assistant Attorney General Carmen Martinez was a small woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for taking down the untouchable. She'd spent 2 years building a case against the Vance operation, hitting wall after wall, watching witnesses disappear and evidence get buried. Tonight, those walls were coming down. She sat across from Sarah at a booth in the corner, a recorder on the table between them, and listened. For 3 hours, she listened. Sarah told her everything. The properties, the accounts, the names she'd heard, whispered during late-night phone calls, the documents she'd signed without understanding what they meant. When she was done, Martinez leaned back and let out a slow breath. Do you understand what you've just given us? Sarah shook her head. This isn't just local corruption. The names you mentioned, the accounts, the shell companies, this goes up to the state level, maybe federal. Martinez's voice was intense. I've been chasing ghosts for 2 years. You just handed me a map. Will it be enough? With your testimony, with the documentation we're gathering tonight, with the evidence we're going to find when we execute warrants tomorrow morning. Martinez almost smiled. It'll be more than enough. What about my daughter? What about keeping her safe? Witness protection is an option. New identities, new location, fresh start. Sarah looked across the diner to where Mila was sitting with Mama Rose drinking hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. For the first time in hours, she was smiling. Can I think about it? Take all the time you need. Just know that whatever you decide, you won't be alone. You've got people in your corner now. Sarah looked at the bikers who'd invaded her life that day. These rough, scarred, terrifying men who'd seen a child in need and moved heaven and earth to help her. Yeah, she said quietly. I'm starting to realize that. Outside, Jace stood in the parking lot, phone pressed to his ear. What do you mean he's gone? Brick's voice crackled through the speaker. I mean, Tank turned his back for 2 minutes and Derek was out the back door. He had a car stashed in the garage we didn't know about. By the time we realized he was gone. Jace's free hand curled into a fist. Any idea where he's headed? Rico's checking traffic cameras, but this isn't exactly a surveillance state out here. He could be anywhere. He's gonna run. He knows it's over. He's gonna try to get out of the state, maybe out of the country. Want me to put out the word? Jace thought about it. Derek Vance running scared with everything closing in around him. A desperate man with resources and connections and nothing left to lose. Dangerous. Put out the word. Every chapter, every ally, every friend we've got between here and the border. Derek Vance doesn't get away. Not after what he did to that little girl. And if we find him? Hold him for the feds. We're not judge and jury. We're just the net. Understood. Jace hung up and stared at the night sky. Stars were coming out bright and cold and indifferent to the drama playing out below. The diner door opened behind him. Jace, Mila's voice, small and uncertain. He turned. She stood in the doorway on her crutches, blanket wrapped around her shoulders, that hot chocolate still clutched in one hand. Hey, kid, you should be resting. I can't sleep. She hobbled toward him, her crutches clicking on the concrete. My brain won't stop thinking. Yeah, I know that feeling. She stopped beside him, looking up at the same stars. Jace, is Derek going to come back? He should lie. Tell her no, everything's fine, go back inside. But something about this kid demanded honesty. He ran away. We're looking for him. Mila absorbed this. Are you scared? No. Why not? Jace looked down at her. This tiny warrior who'd walked 2 miles to find help, who'd been braver than grown men 3 times her size, who'd somehow seen something in him worth trusting when everyone else looked away. Because I've got people. People who fight with me, watch my back, help me when things get hard. He crouched down to her level. And now you've got people too. A whole bunch of us. And we're not going to let anything bad happen to you. Promise. I don't make promises I can't keep. So yeah, promise. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something that caught him completely off guard. She reached out and touched the scar on his face. The one that ran from temple to jaw, that made people cross the street, that had become so much a part of him he forgot it was there. Does it hurt? Not anymore. How did you get it? A bad man gave it to me a long time ago. Did you fight back? Eventually. Did you win? Jace thought about all the fights he'd won and lost over the years, all the scars visible and invisible, all the ways he'd been broken and put himself back together. I'm still here, he said, so I guess that means yes. Mila nodded slowly. I want to fight back too. Against Derek. Against everyone who hurt me and Mommy. You already are. Every day you wake up and keep going, that's fighting back. Every time you're brave, when you want to give up, that's fighting back. He stood his knees, protesting. The biggest fight isn't against the bad guys, kid. It's against the voice in your head that tells you to quit. And you've been winning that fight your whole life. Mila's eyes welled with tears. Nobody ever told me that before. Well, I'm telling you now. And I'm always right, so you can take it to the bank. She laughed. A real laugh, wet with tears, but genuine. You're not always right. I'm right about this. The diner door opened again. Sarah stepped out, worry creasing her face until she spotted them. Mila, baby, you need to rest. I know, Mommy. Mila looked up at Jace one more time. Thank you. For the pancakes. And for everything else. Anytime, kid. She hobbled back to her mother, who wrapped an arm around her shoulders and guided her inside. At the door, Sarah paused and looked back at Jace. You didn't have to do any of this, she said. You don't know us. You don't owe us anything. Jace shrugged. That's not why you help people. Then why? He thought about it. Really thought about it. Because someone should. And because I was standing there when she needed someone. He looked away. In my experience, that's usually how it works. You don't go looking for the moment that changes everything. It just walks through the door and asks to share your table. Sarah's eyes glistened. She nodded once, then disappeared inside. Jace stood alone in the parking lot, surrounded by motorcycles and silence, and waited for news about a monster who was still out there somewhere in the dark. At 3:47 a.m., his phone rang. "Jace," Brick's voice was tight. "We found him." "Where?" "You're not going to believe this." "Try me." "He's heading back, toward Cedar Ridge. He's got a gun, and he's making calls. Whatever he's planning, he's not running anymore." Jace's blood went cold. "What kind of calls?" "Sheriff's Department calls. At least 3 deputies still loyal to Wayne, and something else we intercepted a text. It's an address." Brick paused. "It's the diner, Jace. He's coming here." Jace looked at the copper kettle behind him, at the lights in the windows, at the people inside who thought they were safe. "How long?" 20 minutes, maybe less." Jace started moving toward his bike, his body shifting into the gear he'd spent decades perfecting. The gear that meant violence was coming, and he intended to be ready. "Get everyone you can here, now." "Already on the way." "And Brick, if he gets past us, if he gets anywhere near that little girl—" "He won't." Jace swung onto his motorcycle, the engine roaring to life beneath him. "Make sure of it." Jace killed his engine 2 blocks from the diner and coasted the rest of the way in silence. His mind was racing through scenarios, calculating angles, measuring threats. 20 years of survival instinct screaming at him that something wasn't right. Derek Vance was a coward, a bully who beat women and children because they couldn't fight back. Men like that didn't charge head first into confrontation. They ran. They hid. They let lawyers and money do their fighting. So why was he coming back? Brick was waiting in the parking lot when Jace arrived. 4 other brothers had materialized out of the darkness, positioned around the diner like sentinels. "Talk to me," Jace said, swinging off his bike. "He's 12 minutes out. Maybe less. 3 vehicles his car plus 2 Sheriff's Department cruisers. At least 5, maybe 6 men total. The deputies, they know what's happening. They know the AG is involved. Doesn't seem to matter. These are Wayne's boys, loyal to the family, not the badge." Jace's jaw tightened. Corrupt cops were the worst kind of enemy. They had training weapons and the arrogance that came with years of operating above the law. "What about our people inside? Doc's got Sarah and Mila in the back office. Mama Rose is with them. Preacher's coordinating with the AG's team. They're 20 minutes out with state police backup. 20 minutes is too long." "I know." Jace looked at the diner. Through the windows he could see the warm glow of lights, the shadows of people moving inside. People who were counting on him to keep them safe. "We need to get them out, now." "There's a back door, service entrance. Rico's bringing a van around." "Do it. Everyone who's not essential to defense goes out the back. Sarah, Mila, Mama Rose, they don't stay here. What about you?" Jace turned to face his sergeant-at-arms. "I'm gonna have a conversation with Derek Vance." "Jace, he's not getting near that little girl. Whatever I have to do, whatever it costs, he's not touching her." Brick studied him for a long moment. They'd been brothers for 15 years, had bled together, fought together, buried friends together. He knew when Jace had made up his mind. "I'll cover the east approach. Tank's got the west. You need backup, you holler." "Always do." Brick moved off into the darkness. Jace stood alone for a moment, feeling the weight of what was coming settle over him like armor. Then he walked into the diner. Sarah knew something was wrong the moment she saw his face. "What is it? What's happening?" Jace kept his voice steady. "Derek's coming. He's got deputies with him. We need to move you and Mila right now." Sarah's face went white. No, he can't. We were supposed to be safe here." "You will be safe, but not here. Rico's got a van out back. Mama Rose is going with you. We're taking you somewhere Derek can't find." "And what about you?" "I'm staying." Mila appeared from behind her mother, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Jace, what's going on?" He crouched down to her level, the way he'd done so many times now. It felt natural. "Hey, kid, remember what I told you about having people who watch your back?" She nodded. "Well, right now I need you to trust those people. Rico and Mama Rose are going to take you somewhere safe while I handle some business here. Can you do that? Is Derek coming?" Jace hesitated. She deserved honesty. "Yeah, he is." Her small body trembled, but she didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just lifted her chin and looked at him with those huge brown eyes. "Are you gonna stop him?" "That's the plan. Promise." He put his hand on her shoulder. "I promise you this, he's never gonna hurt you again. No matter what happens tonight, that part is over. You understand?" She threw her arms around his neck. The hug was fierce, desperate, the grip of a child who'd learned that people left and didn't come back. "Don't die," she whispered. "Please don't die." Something cracked in Jace's chest, something that had been frozen for a very long time. "I'll do my best, kid." Mama Rose appeared at his elbow. "Van's ready. We need to go." Jace pried Mila's arms from around his neck and passed her to her mother. Sarah clutched her daughter tight, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. If we don't see you again, you'll see me again." Jace's voice left no room for doubt. "Now go." They went, out the back door into the van into the night. Jace watched until the taillights disappeared around the corner. Then he turned to face what was coming. Doc was packing up his medical kit when Jace found him. "You should go too," Jace said. Doc snorted. "I'm 64 years old. I've got arthritis in both hands and I haven't fired a gun since I left the army. What exactly am I going to do in a fight? Not die, hopefully. I spent 30 years patching up people after violence. Seems fitting I should be here when there's about to be more of it." Doc met his eyes. "Besides, someone's going to need medical attention before this night's over. Might as well be me who provides it." Jace didn't argue. There wasn't time. "Stay in the back, behind the counter. If shooting starts, I know how to take cover, son. This isn't my first rodeo." The rumble of engines drifted through the night air. Not motorcycles. Cars. Jace moved to the front window. Headlights were approaching. 3 sets, just like Brick had said. "Here we go," he muttered. Preacher appeared at his shoulder phone in hand. "State police are 15 minutes out. A.G. Martinez is with them. We need to stall for 15 minutes. Can we do that? We're about to find out." The vehicles pulled into the parking lot. Derek's black Mercedes, 2 Cedar Ridge Sheriff's Department cruisers. They arranged themselves in a semicircle facing the diner headlights blazing like spotlights on a stage. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the doors opened. Derek Vance stepped out of the Mercedes. He looked different than Jace had imagined, smaller somehow. Softer. The kind of man who bought his muscles at a gym and his courage at a liquor store. But there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Desperation. The look of a man who'd lost everything and had nothing left to lose. He was holding a gun. 4 deputies flanked him. 3 from the cruisers plus 1 who must have been in Derek's car. All armed. All wearing that particular expression of men who'd made bad choices and were about to make worse ones. "Jace Holloway," Derek's voice carried across the parking lot. "I know you're in there. I know you've got my family." Jace pushed open the diner's front door and stepped outside. Alone. "Your family?" He kept his voice calm, almost conversational. "Funny way to describe people you've been beating and torturing for 2 years." You don't know anything about my family. I know enough. I know you burned a 6-year-old girl with cigarettes. I know you broke her mother's arm when she tried to leave. I know you've been hiding behind your cousin's badge while you run drugs through half the county. Jace spread his hands. How am I doing so far? Derek's face contorted with rage. You think you can just swoop in and take what's mine? You think some biker trash can interfere with my business? I think your business is over. State AG's got everything. Your accounts, your properties, your whole operation. By morning, you'll be in federal custody. Then I've got nothing to lose, do I? He raised the gun. Jace didn't move, didn't flinch. Just stood there a clear target, drawing every eye. You shoot me, it doesn't change anything. Sarah and Mila are gone. They're safe. You'll never find them. And you'll spend the rest of your life in prison knowing they're out there somewhere free of you forever. Shut up. Your cousin Wayne's already in custody. 3 of his deputies flipped within an hour. Everyone you thought was loyal. They're making deals right now, trying to save themselves. I said, shut up. You're alone, Derek. You've always been alone. Men like you always are. Because you don't know how to love anything. You only know how to own it. Control it. Destroy it when it won't bend. Derek's hand was shaking now. The gun wavered in his grip. I'm going to kill you, he said. Then I'm going to find Sarah and Mila. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care where they go. I will find them. And I will... You won't. A new voice. Female. Strong. Sarah stepped out of the shadows at the side of the building. Jace's heart stopped. Sarah, what are you... I told Rico to stop the van. She walked forward past Jace toward her tormentor. Her face was still bruised. Her body still bore the marks of his cruelty. But her eyes were clear, steady, unafraid. Sarah. Derek's voice softened, shifted into something almost pleading. Baby, listen to me. We can work this out. Whatever they've told you, whatever lies they've... Lies. Sarah laughed, and it was a sound like breaking glass. You beat me for 2 years. You terrorized my daughter. You made us prisoners in our own home. And you think there are lies anyone could tell that would be worse than the truth of living with you. I loved you. You don't know what love is. Her voice rose, cracking with years of suppressed fury. Love doesn't leave bruises. Love doesn't burn a child. Love doesn't lock people in rooms and take their phones and threaten to kill them if they try to leave. Sarah, please. No. You don't get to please me anymore. You don't get to apologize or explain or charm your way out of this. It's over, Derek. Do you understand? It's over. Derek stared at her. Something shifted in his face. The desperation curdled into something uglier. If I can't have you, he said slowly, nobody can. He swung the gun toward Sarah. 3 things happened at once. Jace lunged forward, putting himself between Sarah and the weapon. Brick emerged from the darkness and tackled the nearest deputy. And Mila's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Leave my mommy alone. Nobody had seen her slip out of the van. Nobody had noticed her making her way back to the diner on her crutches, moving through shadows driven by a 6-year-old's desperate need to protect her mother. She stood at the corner of the building, small and fierce and absolutely terrified, screaming at the monster who had haunted her nightmares for 2 years. Derek froze. For a moment, the whole world froze. Mila, Sarah breathed. No, baby, go back. She's not going anywhere. Derek's voice had changed. Gone cold. He swung the gun toward the little girl. Neither are any of you. Derek, don't! Sarah tried to move, but one of the deputies grabbed her arm. You want to play hero? Derek sneered at Jace. You want to save the poor little cripple and her pathetic mother, fine. Watch this. He took a step toward Mila, then another. Jace moved without thinking. 15 years of prison survival, 20 years of violence, every fight he'd ever won or lost. It all came down to this moment. He hit Derek from the side, driving him to the ground. The gun went off the shot, going wild, punching through the diner's window. They rolled across the asphalt, grappling for control of the weapon. Derek was soft. Jace had been right about that. But desperation gave him strength, and the gun was still in his hand, and the second shot caught Jace in the shoulder. Pain exploded through him, white-hot and blinding. He felt his grip loosen, felt Derek scrambling away, felt the warm rush of blood soaking his shirt. "Jace!" Brick's voice somewhere distant. "Stay back!" Derek was on his feet now, gun trained on Jace's chest. "Everyone stay back, or I finish him." The world was going fuzzy at the edges. Jace pressed his hand against his shoulder, trying to slow the bleeding, trying to stay conscious. "You lose," Derek said. "You understand you tried to be a hero and you lost." "Did I?" Jace's voice was weak, but he managed a bloody smile. "What? Well, look around." Derek looked. The parking lot was surrounded. Not just the iron wolves, though they were there materializing from every shadow, but other people too. Townspeople. The cook from the diner wielding a cast-iron skillet. The elderly couple who'd ignored Mila, now standing with baseball bats. The young mother who'd turned her away holding her phone up and recording everything. Even the church women were there, standing in their Sunday best at 4 a.m, faces set with determination. "What is this?" Derek's voice cracked. "This is what happens," Jace said, "when you hurt a child in front of a whole town. They might look away at first. They might pretend they don't see. But eventually," he coughed blood on his lips, "eventually they remember what they're supposed to be." "You're all going to jail," Derek screamed, waving his gun at the crowd. "All of you, this is obstruction! This is sirens! Distant but approaching fast. A lot of them." "That'll be the state police," Preacher said calmly, stepping forward from the crowd. "Along with Assistant AG Martinez and her team. I believe you're familiar with the concept of federal jurisdiction." Derek's face went white. No, this isn't. I have rights. I have lawyers." "You have the right to remain silent." The voice came from behind him. A woman in a dark suit, flanked by uniformed officers. "I'd strongly recommend you exercise it. Derek Vance, you're under arrest for assault, kidnapping, child abuse, drug trafficking, money laundering, and—" She paused to count on her fingers. "Actually, let's just say we'll be adding charges as we go. We've got time." "This is a mistake." Derek's voice had gone high and thin. "Do you know who I am? Do you know who I work for? We know exactly who you work for. We've been building cases against them for years. Thank you for giving us the final piece of the puzzle." 2 officers moved forward. Derek lunged away from them and found himself face to face with Brick. "Go ahead," Brick said softly. "Run." Derek didn't run. They cuffed him right there in the parking lot, surrounded by bikers and townspeople, and the small girl on crutches who'd brought his empire crashing down. The ambulance arrived 7 minutes later. Jace was fading in and out of consciousness by then. Doc had done what he could with limited supplies, but the bullet had gone through clean, and blood loss was becoming critical. "Stay with me, Prez," Brick's voice close to his ear. "Medics are almost here." "Mila," Jace mumbled. "Is she? She's fine. She's right here." A small hand slipped into his. Warm. Trembling. Alive. "Jace. Jace, you have to wake up." He forced his eyes open. Mila was kneeling beside him, tears streaming down her face, both her hands wrapped around his bloody one. "Hey, kid. You got shot. Noticed that. You said you wouldn't die. I said—" He had to stop, gather his strength. "I said I'd do my best." "That's not good enough." Her voice cracked. "You promised. You promised you'd see us again." "Mila." Sarah crouched down beside her daughter, pulling her close. "Let the medics work." "But he's hurt. He's hurt because of us." "No." Jace's voice was barely a whisper now. "Hurt because of him. Because of Derek. Never because of you." He squeezed her hand as hard as he could, which wasn't hard at all. "Best thing I ever did. Letting you share my table." The medics arrived. Hands pulled him onto a stretcher. Voices shouted medical terminology he didn't understand. The world dissolved into flashing lights and movement, and Mila's voice calling his name as they loaded him into the ambulance. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness took him was a 6-year-old girl on crutches, standing in the parking lot of a diner, watching him go. She wasn't crying anymore. She was praying. Carmen Martinez watched the ambulance pull away, then turned to survey the chaos of the parking lot. Deputies in handcuffs. Bikers giving statements. Townspeople clustered in groups talking in hushed voices about what they'd witnessed. Preacher approached her notebook, still in hand. "Hell of a night," he said. "Hell of a case." She shook her head slowly. "I've been trying to crack Cedar Ridge for 2 years. One little girl walks into a diner and the whole thing falls apart in 12 hours. That's how it happens sometimes. One person brave enough to ask for help. One person willing to give it. The biker, Holloway. Is he going to make it? Doc says the bullet missed the artery. He's lost a lot of blood, but he's strong. Survived worse." Martinez looked at the spot where Derek Vance had been standing when the world crashed down around him. There's going to be blowback from this. Derek wasn't working alone. The people above him, they're not going to be happy about losing their pipeline. "Let them come." Preacher's voice was cold. "We'll be ready. This isn't your fight anymore. The federal government. With all due respect, ma'am, when a child asks for help and you answer it, becomes your fight forever." He tucked his notebook into his vest. "That little girl trusted us when nobody else would. We're not walking away now." Martinez studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "I'll be in touch. We're going to need witnesses. Documentation. Everything you've got. You'll have it." She turned to leave, then paused. "The mother. Sarah. What happens to her now?" "Mama Rose is taking care of them. Shelter's ready. After that?" Preacher shrugged. "That's up to them. Witness protection might still be the safest option." "Might be, but I think that family's done running." 3 hours later, the sun came up over Cedar Ridge. Sarah sat on the front porch of Mama Rose's shelter, watching the light spread across the sky. Mila was finally asleep inside, exhausted beyond words, clutching a stuffed bear someone had given her. The world felt different this morning. Lighter, somehow. Like a weight she'd been carrying for so long she'd forgotten it was there had finally been lifted. Mama Rose appeared with 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Sarah and settled into the chair beside her. "How you holding up?" Sarah wrapped her hands around the warm mug. "I don't know. I keep waiting to wake up. Keep waiting for someone to tell me this was all a dream and I have to go back. It's not a dream. Derek's in federal custody. His whole operation is being dismantled. You and Mila are safe." "Safe." Sarah tested the word like it was foreign. "I don't think I remember what that feels like." "You'll learn again. Takes time, but you learn." They sat in silence for a while, watching the sunrise. "Jace," Sarah said finally. "Have you heard anything? Brick called an hour ago. He's out of surgery. Lost a lot of blood, but they got the bullet out clean. He's gonna be okay. Sarah closed her eyes. Relief washed through her so intense it was almost painful. He saved our lives. He did what he does, what they all do, find people who need help and help them. Mama Rose sipped her coffee. That's what the Iron Wolves are about. Always has been. Underneath the leather and the tattoos and the scary faces, they're just people who know what it feels like to be thrown away, so they pick up the pieces when they find them. I don't know how to thank them. You don't have to thank them. Just— Mama Rose paused, choosing her words carefully. Just live. That's all they want. For you and Mila to have a life. A real life, not the prison Derek kept you in. Get up every day, take care of your daughter, find out who you are when you're not afraid anymore. That's the best thank you any of them could ask for. The front door creaked open. Mila stood there on her crutches, hair tangled, eyes still heavy with sleep. Mommy. I'm here, baby. What's wrong? Mila hobbled out onto the porch. I had a dream about Jace. He was okay. He was smiling. Sarah pulled her daughter onto her lap, crutches and all. Jace is going to be fine. They fixed him up at the hospital. Really? Really? We can go see him later if you want. Mila nodded fiercely. Then she looked out at the sunrise, her face soft with wonder. Mommy, yes, baby. Is this what safe feels like? Sarah's throat tightened. She pressed her lips to her daughter's hair, breathing in the scent of her, feeling the warmth of her small body. Yeah, baby. This is what safe feels like. Mila was quiet for a moment. Then, I like it. Sarah laughed, tears spilling down her cheeks. Me too, baby. Me too. At the hospital, Jace opened his eyes. The room was white and beeping and smelled like antiseptic. He hated hospitals. Always had. But when Brick's face swam into focus beside the bed, he managed something like a smile. You look terrible, Brick said. Feel worse. Doc says you'll live. Bullet went clean through. You'll be out of here in a week. Can't wait a week. Too much to do. It can wait. Brick's voice was firm. The feds have Derek. The network's falling apart. Sarah and Mila are safe at the shelter. Everything's handled. Jace let his eyes close again. The drugs were pulling him under, making the world soft and distant. The kid, he mumbled. Mila, she okay? She's good. Asking about you constantly. Wants to visit as soon as they let her. Tell her. He had to fight to stay conscious. Tell her I kept my promise. I'll tell her. And Brick, yeah, thanks for having my back. Always, brother, always. Jace let the darkness take him, but this time it was peaceful. The darkness of rest, not fear. The darkness of healing, not harm. He dreamed of a little girl on crutches asking to share his table. In the dream, he said yes. 4 days after the shooting, Mila walked into Jace's hospital room carrying a piece of paper folded into a tiny square. Sarah tried to stop her at the door. Baby, he might be sleeping. I'm not sleeping. Jace's voice was rough, weaker than before, but his eyes were open. Let her in. Mila crossed the room on her crutches, moving faster than she had that first day at the diner. Something had changed in her. The fear was still there, probably always would be, but it wasn't running the show anymore. She stopped at the edge of his bed, suddenly shy. Hi? Hi yourself. Does it hurt? Only when I breathe. He tried to smile, or move, or think too hard. That's a lot of things. Tell me about it. She held out the folded paper. I made you something. Jace took it. With his good hand, his left arm was strapped to his chest, immobilized to let the shoulder heal. He unfolded the paper carefully, one corner at a time. It was a drawing. Crayon on white paper, the kind of art only a 6-year-old could create. 3 figures standing in front of a building. A tall man covered in scribbled tattoos. A woman with yellow hair. A small girl with 1 leg and 2 crutches. Above them, in careful letters that must have taken her forever to write, were 2 words, "My Heroes." Jace stared at it for a long time. His jaw worked like he was trying to swallow something that wouldn't go down. "Mila," his voice cracked. I know it's not very good. The legs are too long and I couldn't get your face right because of all the scars, but it's perfect." She looked up at him, uncertain. "Really? Really? Best thing anyone's ever given me." Her face split into a grin so wide it transformed her entirely. For just a moment, she looked exactly like what she was supposed to be, a happy 6-year-old kid, innocent and hopeful and free. "Mommy helped me with the letters. I can write my name by myself, but Heroes has too many letters. Your mommy's pretty smart." Sarah stepped forward, her hand finding Mila's shoulder. "She wouldn't let me rest until we came. Been asking every hour if it was time to visit yet. Sorry for the trouble." "Don't you dare apologize." Sarah's voice was fierce. "You took a bullet for us, for my daughter. I don't care if she wants to visit every day for the rest of her life, you've earned it." Jace didn't know what to say to that. He'd never been good with gratitude, never known how to accept kindness without feeling like he owed something in return. Mila saved him from having to respond. "Jace, can I ask you something? Anything, kid. When you get better, where will you go?" He blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, do you have a house, a family, someone to take care of you?" The questions were so earnest, so genuinely concerned, that Jace felt something crack open in his chest again. That same place Mila had found her way into 4 days ago. "I've got a place. Little house outside town. And the club, they're my family." "But who makes you soup when you're sick? Who reads you stories?" Sarah winced. "Mila, it's okay." Jace met the little girl's eyes. "Nobody makes me soup. Nobody reads me stories. Been taking care of myself for a long time." Mila's face crumpled with something that looked like sorrow. "That's really sad. Never thought about it that way. Everyone needs someone to make them soup." She said it like it was obvious, like she was stating a law of nature. "When I was sick, Mommy always made me soup, even when Derek got mad about her using the kitchen." Jace looked at Sarah. Something passed between them, an understanding that didn't need words. "Tell you what," Sarah said slowly. "When Jace gets out of the hospital, maybe we can make him some soup, as a thank you." "Really?" Mila bounced on her crutches. "Can we bring it to his house? If he's okay with that." They both looked at Jace. He should say no, should keep his distance, protect himself from getting too attached. That was what he'd always done. That was how he'd survived. But something about this kid, this mother, this impossible situation that had dropped into his life. "I'd like that," he heard himself say. "I'd like that a lot." Brick was waiting in the hallway when Sarah and Mila left. "You're getting soft, Prez." "Shut up. I'm serious. 4 days ago you were lone wolf Jace, eating burgers by yourself, not talking to anyone who wasn't wearing a patch. Now you're making soup dates with a 6-year-old. It's not a date. I know what I saw." Brick's voice softened. "And I think it's good. You've needed someone for a long time, whether you knew it or not." Jace didn't answer. He was still holding the drawing, his thumb tracing the crayon outline of the little girl with 1 leg. "Any news on Derek?" "Federal custody. They moved him to Nashville this morning. AG Martinez says the charges are piling up faster than they can file them. Drug trafficking, money laundering, tax evasion, assault, child abuse." Brick ticked them off on his fingers. He's looking at 3 consecutive life sentences minimum. "What about the people above him?" "That's where it gets interesting. Martinez has been working this case for 2 years, right? Derek was just a mid-level guy. The real money, the real power, it goes way higher. How high? State Senate high. Maybe federal. Jace's eyes sharpened. You're saying Derek was connected to politicians. I'm saying the drug pipeline he was running didn't exist in a vacuum. Someone was protecting it. Someone with enough juice to keep the feds off the scent for years. And now that Derek's talking... Brick smiled, but it wasn't pleasant. Now the dominoes are starting to fall. Martinez says they've already got 3 more arrests pending, including, get this, a state judge who was signing off on Derek's adoption paperwork. Adoption paperwork. Yeah. Turns out Derek was trying to legally adopt Mila. Would have given him complete control over her. No way for Sarah to take her and run. Jace's good hand curled into a fist. Son of a bitch. It gets worse. The judge who was going to approve it, he's part of the network. Has been for years. They weren't just moving drugs, Jace. They were moving kids. The world went red at the edges. Jace had seen a lot of evil in his life. Had done some evil himself, if he was being honest. But this, how many? They don't know yet. Martinez is pulling records going back 5 years. Could be dozens. And Mila was next on the list. If she hadn't run, if you hadn't been there, Brick's voice caught. She would have disappeared into the system. Would have ended up God knows where. Jace looked at the drawing in his hand. The little girl with 1 leg. My heroes. We're not done, he said quietly. What do you mean? I mean, this isn't over. Derek's in custody, but the people who were going to take that little girl, they're still out there. Still operating. Still hurting kids. Jace, you've got a hole in your shoulder. I've had worse. The feds are handling it. Martinez has a whole task force. And how long did it take them to get anywhere? 2 years, 3. Meanwhile, how many kids fell through the cracks? Jace's eyes were burning now. We found Derek in 12 hours, Brick. 12 hours. Because we weren't following procedure. We were following a scared little girl who needed help. Brick was quiet for a long moment. What are you thinking? I'm thinking the Iron Wolves just found a new mission. The next morning, Carmen Martinez showed up at the hospital. She looked different than she had that night in the parking lot, exhausted, rumpled, like she'd been living on coffee and determination for a week. But her eyes were sharp as ever. Mr. Holloway, you look better than the last time I saw you. Lower bar. Fair enough. She pulled a chair close to his bed and sat down. I've been going through the files we recovered from Derek's properties. Financial records, communications, client lists. It's extensive. So I heard. Your friend Preacher has been helpful. Former detective, right? He knows how to build a case. Preacher knows a lot of things. So do you, apparently. Martinez leaned forward. I've been asking around about the Iron Wolves, about you specifically. You've got quite a reputation. I've made mistakes. Everyone has. But you've also done some good. Quietly. Without fanfare. Protecting people who had nowhere else to turn. Jace said nothing. The women's shelter that Mama Rose runs. It's funded by your club, isn't it? Has been for 15 years. You've helped dozens of abuse victims disappear and start over. Veterans who fell through the cracks. Kids aging out of foster care with nothing. What's your point? My point is that you're not just some outlaw biker. You're something more complicated. And I think we might be able to help each other. Jace studied her. Help each other how? The network Derek was part of, it's bigger than anything I've dealt with before. State lines may be international. I've got warrants and subpoenas and all the legal tools, but legal tools only get you so far. Sometimes you need people who operate differently. You want to use us. I want to partner with you, unofficially, off the books. You have access to communities the federal government will never reach. people who trust you, resources and connections that don't show up on any database. And in return, I make sure your club stays off the radar. No harassment from local cops. No trumped-up charges when someone decides bikers make easy targets. You help me bring down the rest of this network, and I help you help people. Simple as that. Jace thought about it. The offer was tempting. More than tempting. But he'd learned a long time ago that nothing with the government was ever simple. I need to talk to my people. Of course. Take your time. She stood gathering her things. But Jace, the sooner we move, the more kids we save. Every day we wait is a day they stay trapped. She left him with that thought, heavy as a stone in his chest. By the end of the week, Jace was going stir-crazy. His shoulder was healing. The doctors were impressed, said his constitution was remarkable for a man his age. They didn't know about the years of self-repair, the wounds he'd stitched himself, the bones he'd set without anesthetic, because there was no other choice. On day 6, Sarah arrived with a pot of soup. Mila insisted, she said, setting it on the bedside table. She supervised every step, made sure I put in extra noodles. Where is she? With Mama Rose. They're doing some kind of art project. Sarah sat down in the chair Martinez had used, tucking her legs under her. She talks about you constantly. Did you know that Jace said this? Jace would do that. When Jace gets better, can we show him my drawings? She's a good kid. She's an incredible kid. I don't know how after everything she's been through, but she's still so hopeful. Like she believes the world can be good, even though it's shown her nothing but bad. Kids are resilient. Some kids. The special ones. Sarah's voice dropped. I wasn't. When I was her age, I gave up. Stopped believing anyone would help. Stopped trying. That's how I ended up with Derek. I didn't think I deserved better. That's not true. It was true. For a long time. She met his eyes. You know what changed? Jace waited. Watching Mila walk into that diner. Watching her ask table after table for help, getting rejected every time, and still keep going. Still keep hoping. Sarah's voice cracked. She was braver at 6 than I've been my whole life. And when she found you when you said yes, I realized something. What? That hope isn't stupid. It's not weakness or denial or childish naivety. Hope is the bravest thing there is. Because it means choosing to believe in something better even when everything tells you not to. Jace didn't know what to say. He'd spent his whole life being cynical, expecting the worst, armoring himself against disappointment. Hope was a foreign language. But looking at Sarah, this woman who'd survived hell and was still standing, he wondered if maybe it was time to learn. What are you going to do now? He asked. When this is all over? I don't know. Martinez offered witness protection, but that would mean leaving everything. Starting over somewhere new where no one knows us. That might be safest. Maybe. But Mila finally has friends. The kids at the shelter, the club families, she's building a life here. I don't want to take that away from her. Sarah paused. And honestly, I don't want to leave either. For the first time in years, I feel like I belong somewhere. Like there are people who actually care what happens to us. There are. I know. That's what makes it so hard. They sat in silence for a while. The soup was getting cold, but neither of them moved. Jace? Yeah. What happens when you get out of here? What's next for you? He thought about Martinez's offer. About the network still operating, the kids still trapped, the work still to be done. I've got some things to figure out. Decisions to make. Anything I can help with? Not yet, but... He hesitated. When you make your decision about staying or going, I want you to know something. What? If you stay, you've got a place. With us. The club looks after its own, And whether you know it or not, you became one of ours the moment Mila asked to share my table." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Why? Why would you do all this for strangers?" "Because I remember being one." Jace's voice was rough. "I remember being the kid nobody wanted, the person everyone looked away from. I remember what it felt like to think nobody in the world gave a damn if I lived or died." He met her eyes. "And then someone did. Someone saw me, really saw me, and decided I was worth saving. Changed my whole life." "Who?" "The man who started the Iron Wolves. He found me in a prison yard 30 years ago. Beat up alone, ready to let the next fight be my last. He sat down next to me and said, 'You look like you could use a family.' What did you say?" "I told him to go to hell." Jace almost smiled. He laughed and said, "Already been there. Not impressed." And then he just stayed, talked to me, day after day, week after week, until I finally started believing he meant it. That you were worth saving. That anyone was. That people could choose to be good even when it was easier to be bad. That family wasn't about blood, it was about choice. Sarah wiped her eyes. "He sounds like an amazing man." "He was. Died 12 years ago. Cancer. I was with him at the end. I'm sorry." "Don't be. He lived the way he wanted, and died with people who loved him, around him. That's more than most get." Jace shifted in the bed, wincing as his shoulder protested. "Point is, he taught me something. We don't save people because they deserve it. We save them because we can. Because the world breaks everyone, and the only thing that makes it bearable is knowing someone might catch you when you fall." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "Mila was right about you," she finally said. "What did she say?" "She said you looked scary on the outside, but you were soft on the inside, like a teddy bear someone wrapped in leather." Jace actually laughed at that, which hurt his shoulder, which made him laugh harder. "Don't tell Brick. He'll never let me live it down. Your secret's safe with me." On day 7, they let him leave. Brick was waiting with a van Jace wasn't cleared to ride yet, which bothered him more than the bullet wound had. The whole club had gathered at his house, cleaning and cooking, and preparing a welcome that made him uncomfortable and grateful in equal measure. Mila was there. She'd made a banner. Purple paper glitter letters, the whole thing slightly lopsided, but made with obvious care. "Welcome home, Jace." "You like it?" She was practically vibrating with excitement. "I did all the letters myself. Sophie helped with the glitter." "Sophie, she's my friend. Her daddy rides with you. She has 2 legs, but she says that doesn't matter because we both like purple, and that's more important." Jace looked at Sarah, who shrugged with a smile. "They've been inseparable all week. She's doing so well. Better than I could have hoped. Kids bounce back. This one does. I think she gets it from you." Jace started to protest, but Mila was already tugging on his good arm. "Come see what we made. There's cake and everything. Doc said you can't have beer because of your medicine, but Mama Rose made lemonade and it's really good." He let her pull him into his own house, surrounded by leather-clad bikers and the family they'd built from nothing, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, Jace Holloway felt like he was home. The meeting happened later that night after Mila had fallen asleep on his couch, and Sarah had carried her to the spare room. Every officer was there. Brick, Preacher, Doc, Tank, Rico, Mama Rose, the people who'd helped him build the Iron Wolves into something more than just a motorcycle club. Jace told them about Martinez's offer. All of it. The partnership. The network. The kids they could save. When he finished, the room was silent. Brick spoke first. "You're talking about making enemies of people way above our pay grade. State senators, judges. Maybe worse. I know. People who could destroy us if they wanted to, legally and otherwise. I know. You want to do it anyway. Jace thought about Mila, about the list they'd found with her name on it, about all the other names on that list, kids he'd never met, kids who were still waiting for someone to save them. Yeah, I do. Preacher leaned forward. The feds have resources we don't. Martinez can offer legal protection coordination information. She can also burn us the moment we're not useful anymore. Tank interrupted. Government types always do. That's why we stay independent, Jace said. We partner, but we don't merge. We help when it makes sense and back off when it doesn't. Our club, our rules. And if it goes sideways, then we do what we've always done. We survive. We adapt. We take care of our own. Mama Rose cleared her throat. Everyone looked at her. I've been running that shelter for 22 years, she said. In that time, I've seen hundreds of women come through, thousands of kids. Most of them had no one, no resources, no support, no hope. And every single time we helped one of them, we were taking a risk. Every single time we could have said it was too dangerous, too complicated, not our problem. She looked around the room. We didn't, because that's not who we are. That's not what this club is about. We're not in the business of playing it safe. We're in the business of giving people chances when nobody else will. Doc nodded slowly. She's right. We've always known this life was dangerous. The question isn't whether we take risks. It's whether those risks are worth taking. Children, Brick said quietly. We're talking about saving children. We're talking about going to war, Tank countered. Then we go to war. Brick's voice was steady. Wouldn't be the first time. One by one, they went around the room. Vote after vote, until finally it came back to Jace. All in favor of taking Martinez up on her offer, every hand went up. Then it's decided. Jace looked at his family, his brothers and sisters, the people who'd stood by him through everything. We've got a new mission, and we're gonna see it through. Sarah found him on the porch, later staring at the stars. Big meeting. Something like that? She sat down beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. I made a decision too. Jace waited. We're staying. Mila and me. No witness protection. No running. She took a breath. This is home now. Whatever comes, we're going to face it here. It might get dangerous. It's already been dangerous. At least now we're not alone. He turned to look at her. In the moonlight, her bruises were healing, fading from purple to yellow to nothing. She looked different than she had that first night. Stronger. More herself. Sarah, I know what you're going to say. That you can't protect us forever. That the club has obligations and enemies, and 100 reasons why getting attached is a bad idea. That's not what I was going to say. No. He looked back at the stars. I was going to say, I'm glad that you're staying, that I'll get to watch that kid grow up. He stopped the words jamming in his throat. That for the first time in a long time I've got something to fight for besides survival. Sarah's hand found his in the darkness. Just a touch. Just a connection. Two people who'd been broken by the world finding their way back to something whole. Jace, yeah, thank you. For everything. For saying yes when everyone else said no. He squeezed her hand gently. Easiest decision I ever made. 6 months changed everything. Derek Vance pled guilty to 47 federal charges on a Tuesday morning in Nashville. Sarah watched the live stream from Mama Rose's living room, Mila asleep in her lap, and felt something release in her chest that had been clenched tight for years. "Life without parole," the news anchor said. "No possibility of early release." Sarah turned off the television and let the silence settle around her. It was over. Finally, truly over. She looked down at her daughter, peaceful in sleep, and whispered words she'd been afraid to say out loud for 2 years. "We're free, baby. We're really free." The network Derek had been part of was dismantled piece by piece over those 6 months. Martinez and her task force worked relentlessly, following every lead the Iron Wolves helped them find. State senators indicted. Judges removed from the bench. A web of corruption that had stretched across 3 states finally exposed to the light. 23 children were recovered from trafficking situations. 23 families reunited. 23 futures that might have been lost, saved because a 6-year-old girl walked into a diner and asked to share a table with a stranger. The Iron Wolves never made the news. That was part of the deal. They operated in shadows, gathering information, making connections, doing the work that badges and warrants couldn't do. When it was over, when the last arrest was made and the last child was safe, Martinez called Jace personally. "We couldn't have done this without you." "Yes, you could have. Would have just taken longer." "Maybe. But those kids couldn't wait longer." She paused. "If you ever need anything, I know where to find you." He hung up before she could say anything else. Gratitude made him uncomfortable. Always had. Mila's 7th birthday fell on a Saturday in July. She'd been living with Jace for 4 months by then. Not officially, not with paperwork and courts and legal arrangements, but practically in the way that mattered. Sarah had needed time. Time to heal, to find herself again, to become the mother Mila deserved. She worked at Mama Rose's shelter now, helping other women escape what she'd survived. She was in therapy. She was getting stronger every day. And Mila needed stability, safety. Someone who made her feel protected in a way she'd never known before. The arrangement had happened naturally, the way real families happen. Sarah came by every day, stayed for dinner most nights, sometimes slept in the guest room when it got too late. The lines between households blurred until they barely existed at all. "It's unconventional," Sarah had said one night when they were sitting on Jace's porch watching the fireflies. "So's everything else about this situation. You don't mind having a kid underfoot all the time?" Jace had watched Mila through the window, teaching Sophie how to draw butterflies, both girls giggling at something only children understood. "Honestly, can't remember what it was like before." So when her birthday came around, the whole club turned out. They transformed Jace's property into something magical. Balloons everywhere, purple, because someone had asked, and she'd whispered her favorite color like she still wasn't sure she was allowed to have one. Streamers in the trees. A banner that said, "Happy Birthday, Mila," in letters big enough to read from the road. Food covered every surface. Hamburgers and hot dogs on the grill. Potato salad and coleslaw. Chips and dip. Vegetables that Doc insisted on because growing kids need nutrients, though everyone knew nobody would eat them. And the cake. 3 layers tall purple frosting butterflies and flowers decorating every inch. Her name in elegant script across the top. The bakery had outdone themselves. Presents were piled on a table near the porch. Some practical clothes, school supplies, books, others pure joy toys and games, and a bicycle with training wheels that Jace had spent 3 weeks modifying so she could ride it with one leg. "Think she'll like it?" he'd asked Brick, staring at his handiwork. "Brother, she's gonna lose her mind." The whole chapter showed up. Not just the officers, but everyone, members and prospects and old ladies and kids. People who'd heard the story and wanted to meet the little girl who'd brought down an empire, who'd walked 2 miles on crutches to find help and hadn't given up even when everyone told her no. Mila stood in the middle of it all, overwhelmed in the best possible way. This is all for me, every bit of it. Jace crouched down to her level, something he did so naturally now he didn't even think about it. Happy birthday, kid. But it's so much. I've never... Her voice cracked. I've never had a party before. What do you mean? Derek said birthdays were wasteful. He said I didn't deserve presents because... She stopped, her eyes filling with tears. Because I was broken. Jace's jaw tightened. Even from prison, even now that monster's words still echoed in her head. Listen to me. He took her small hands in his scarred ones. You are not broken. You have never been broken. Derek was the broken one. Derek was so broken inside that he couldn't stand seeing anyone whole, so he tried to break everyone around him. But my leg... Your leg is just part of you. Like my scars are part of me. They're not flaws. They're just who we are. He squeezed her hands. And who you are is the bravest, strongest, most amazing kid I've ever known. You deserve every present on that table. You deserve this party and 1,000 more. You deserve everything good in this world. She stared at him with those huge brown eyes, tears spilling down her cheeks. Do you really believe that I don't say things I don't believe? She threw her arms around his neck, the same fierce grip she'd had in the hospital, the same desperate hold of a child who'd learned that love could be taken away without warning. I love you, Jace. The words hit him like a bullet. Harder than the bullet, actually. That one had only torn through flesh. This one tore through something much deeper. I love you too, kid. Awesome. He'd never said those words to anyone. Not in 45 years of living. Not to the brothers who'd become his family. Not to the women who'd passed through his life. He'd thought that part of him was dead, burned away by a childhood that had taught him love was a weakness people exploited. But holding this little girl, feeling her heart beat against his chest, he understood something he'd missed his whole life. Love wasn't weakness. It was the only strength that mattered. The party was in full swing when Sarah found him. He'd retreated to the edge of things, watching from a distance, still not quite comfortable being the center of attention, even at an event he'd helped organize. She's having the time of her life. Jace followed Sarah's gaze to where Mila was surrounded by other kids, all of them shrieking with laughter as they played some game he didn't understand. Sophie was at her side as always. The two had become inseparable. Good. She deserves it. She does. Sarah was quiet for a moment. So do you? I'm having a fine time. You're standing alone in a corner pretending to check your phone. I'm supervising. Sarah laughed, and the sound did something to his chest that he wasn't ready to examine too closely. Come on, she said, grabbing his hand. Cake time, and you're not getting out of singing. I don't sing. You do today. That's the rule. I must have missed that rule. It's in the fine print of being part of this family. She tugged him toward the crowd. No exceptions. Not even for scary bikers with face scars. He let her pull him along, grumbling for show, but secretly grateful to be included, to be wanted, to be part of something bigger than himself. The cake was perfect. Mila's face when she saw it was even more perfect. Everyone gathered around, voices joining together in the worst rendition of Happy Birthday Jace had ever heard. Off-key and too loud and absolutely wonderful. Make-a-wish, baby, Sarah said. Mila closed her eyes. The moment stretched. When she opened them and blew out the candles, the cheer that went up could probably be heard 3 counties over. Later, someone would ask her what she wished for. Nothing, she'd say, smiling that smile that transformed her whole face. I already got everything I wanted. After the cake was eaten and the presents were opened, someone suggested giving her a proper Iron Wolves welcome. 30 motorcycles lined up in the yard, maybe more. Members from 3 different chapters all come to celebrate this kid who'd touched something in all of them. Ready? Brick asked. Mila nodded, eyes wide with anticipation. The engines roared to life. 30 bikes revving in unison, the sound shaking the ground and rattling windows, and announcing to the world that this little girl mattered, that she was one of them now, that she would never be alone again. Mila laughed. Not a giggle, not a polite chuckle, a full-body, uncontrollable laugh that came from somewhere deep, from a place where joy had been locked away for so long, it had almost forgotten how to escape. She laughed so hard she nearly fell over her crutches, wobbling her balance, going sideways. Jace caught her. He was there in an instant, one hand steadying her shoulder, the other supporting her arm. The same way he'd been there for 6 months. The same way he'd be there for as long as she needed him. "You good kid?" She didn't answer with words. She wrapped her arms around his neck and held on her face, pressed against his shoulder, her whole body shaking with happiness instead of fear. "I'm home," she whispered. 2 words. That's all it took. "I'm home." Jace held her tight and let himself feel something he'd spent his whole life running from. Belonging. Family. Love. Over her shoulder, he saw Sarah watching them, tears streaming down her face, a smile so bright it could have lit up the whole county. He smiled back. 3 weeks after the party, Sarah moved in. Not officially, not with any announcement or discussion. She just stopped leaving. Her things appeared in closets and drawers, her toothbrush next to his in the bathroom, her coffee mug in the cabinet next to the mismatched dishes he'd collected over the years. "Is this okay?" she asked one night when they were sitting on the porch again, Mila asleep inside. "Is what okay? This, us, whatever this is becoming?" Jace thought about it. A year ago he would have panicked, would have pushed her away before she could get too close, before he could get hurt, before the inevitable disappointment when she realized he wasn't worth loving. But that was before Mila, before everything changed. "I'm not good at this," he said slowly. "Relationships, feelings, the whole thing. I've been alone most of my life because that was safer, easier. I know. But," he struggled for words, "when I'm with you two, I don't want safe, I don't want easy. I want this, whatever it is. Even if it scares me." Sarah reached over and took his hand. "It scares me too. After Derek, I didn't think I'd ever trust anyone again. Didn't think I deserved to be happy." "You deserve everything." "So do you." She squeezed his fingers. "That's what I'm trying to say. We both deserve this. We deserve to be happy. To build something good from everything bad that happened." "You really believe that?" "I'm choosing to believe it. Every day. That's what hope is, right? Choosing to believe in something better even when you're afraid." Jace remembered saying something similar to her in the hospital months ago. She'd been listening. "I'm gonna mess up," he said. "I'm gonna say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, or so will I, so will Mila. That's how families work. We mess up and apologize and try again. Is that what we are, a family?" Sarah looked through the window at Mila, then back at him. "What else would you call it?" He didn't have an answer for that. But for the first time in his life, he didn't need one. Some things didn't need words. They just needed time. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay." Okay, let's be a family. Sarah leaned over and kissed him. It was soft and tentative and perfect. Was that okay? She asked. Yeah. His voice was rough. That was okay. On a Sunday morning in September, Mila made an announcement at breakfast. I have something to show you. She disappeared into her room and came back with a piece of paper. Another drawing like the one she'd given Jace in the hospital, but different. This one showed a house, 3 figures in front of it, a tall man with scribbled tattoos, a woman with yellow hair, a small girl with 1 leg and crutches. But this time there was more. A dog sitting at their feet they'd adopted a rescue mutt named Tank Jr. 2 months ago. Motorcycles in the background. Other figures around them smaller, but present, representing the club. And underneath in letters that were neater, now more practiced, 3 words, My Family Home. Jace and Sarah stared at it together. I had to add more people, Mila explained. Because our family got bigger, and the house needed to be bigger too. And I put Tank Jr. in because he's family now, even though he eats my socks sometimes. It's beautiful, Sarah whispered. Do you like the word I used? Mila pointed at the paper. Home. I learned to write it by myself. Mrs. Patterson at school said I did a really good job. Jace picked her up, ignoring the twinge in his shoulder that still bothered him when the weather changed. I love it. Best present I ever got. Better than the other one. Even better. Good, because I'm going to make more. I'm going to draw our whole story, from when I walked into the diner all the way to now, so I never forget. You won't forget, Sarah said, but drawing it is a wonderful idea. Jace can help me remember the parts I was too little to understand. Right, Jace? Right, kid? Anytime you want. She hugged him tight, then squirmed to get down. I'm going to go start. This is going to take a lot of paper. She grabbed her crutches and took off toward her room, moving with a confidence now that hadn't existed 6 months ago. The confidence of a child who knew she was safe, who knew she was loved, who knew finally that she was home. Sarah leaned against Jace, her head on his good shoulder. Think she'll really draw the whole story? Probably. She doesn't do anything halfway. Wonder where she gets that from. Jace thought about the night they'd met, the diner, the tables that had turned her away. The moment she'd stopped in front of him and asked to share his table. I was just eating a burger, he said. If she'd come in 5 minutes later, I would have been gone. But she didn't. No, she didn't. And you said yes. Easiest yes I ever said. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Do you ever think about it? How different things would be if you'd said no like everyone else. Don't have to think about it. Didn't happen. She asked, I answered. And here we are. Here we are? Sarah's voice was soft. Building a family from scratch. A biker and abuse survivor, and a 6-year-old girl who changed everything. 7 now. 7-year-old. God, time flies. Does that? But I'm not in a hurry anymore. Jace pulled her closer. Got everything I need right here. 1 year to the day after Mila walked into the Copper Kettle Diner, the Iron Wolves held a dedication ceremony. They'd raised money, done fundraisers, called in favors, and built something from the ground up. The sign out front read, Mila's Voice, a foundation for forgotten children. It was a beautiful building. Warm colors, welcoming spaces designed to make scared kids feel safe. A place where children could go when they had nowhere else. Where they'd find people who would listen, believe them, fight for them. Carmen Martinez cut the ribbon. The whole club was there along with half the town. The church women who'd whispered that day in the diner they'd donated more money than anyone. Guilt, maybe. Or redemption. Either way, it helped. Mila stood at the front between Jace and Sarah, watching the crowd. "There's so many people," she whispered. "They're here because of you. Because of all of us." No kid. Jace crouched down. He'd probably done it 1,000 times by now, that movement as natural as breathing. "They're here because you were brave. Because you didn't give up when everyone told you no. Because you kept walking until you found someone who would help." "You helped." "I just said yes. You did the hard part." She thought about that for a moment. "Can I say something to everyone?" Sarah looked at Jace. He nodded. "Go ahead, baby. Say whatever you want." Mila hobbled up to the microphone. It was too tall for her, so Brick adjusted it down, giving her an encouraging smile. The crowd went quiet. "Hi," she said. Her voice shook a little, but she didn't stop. "My name is Mila. I'm 7 years old. A year ago I walked into a restaurant because I was scared and hungry, and I didn't have anywhere else to go." She took a breath. Everyone said no. Everyone looked away. I thought maybe that was just how the world worked, that some people mattered and some people didn't, and I was one of the ones who didn't. Sarah wiped her eyes. Jace's jaw was tight with emotion. "But then I found Jace. He was the scariest person in the whole place, big and covered in tattoos, and everyone was afraid of him. But when I asked if I could sit at his table, he said yes. He didn't look away. He didn't pretend I wasn't there. He saw me." Her voice grew stronger. "And then more people came. Brick, and Doc, and Preacher, and Mama Rose, and my mommy got saved. And the bad man went to jail, and I found out that families aren't just the people you're born with. They're the people who choose you." She looked out at the crowd. "This place is for kids like me. Kids who think nobody cares. Kids who are scared and don't know where to go. I want them to know something." She pointed at the building behind her. "This is a place where someone will always say yes. This is a place where you matter. This is a place where you can find your family." She paused, gathering herself for the last part. "My name is Mila. I used to think I was broken. Now I know I'm not. I'm just different. And different is okay. Different is good. Because if I wasn't different, I wouldn't have walked into that diner. I wouldn't have found my dad." The word hit Jace like lightning. Dad. She'd never called him that before. He'd never expected her to. He was just Jace, just the scary biker who'd given her a seat. Mila looked directly at him. "That's what you are." "Right. My dad. Even if it's not official." The crowd was holding its breath. Sarah was crying openly. Brick was suspiciously misty-eyed. Jace walked to the microphone. He stood next to this little girl who'd changed everything, who'd walked into his life on crutches and a prayer, and refused to leave, who'd broken down every wall he'd ever built. "Yeah," he said, his voice rough. "That's what I am." Mila threw her arms around him. The crowd erupted in applause, and Jace Holloway, president of the Iron Wolves MC, the scariest man in Cedar Ridge, the lone wolf who'd spent 45 years convinced he didn't need anyone. He cried. Right there in front of everyone, tears streaming down his scarred face, this child in his arms, this family he'd never expected and now couldn't imagine living without. Sometimes the people you're meant to find don't come looking the way you'd expect. Sometimes they come on crutches. Sometimes they come scared and hungry and rejected by everyone else. Sometimes they just ask to share your table. And if you're brave enough to say yes, if you're open enough to let them in, they might just change your entire life. If this story moved, you share it. Because there are more Milas out there, more children waiting for someone to see them, believe them, fight for them. More scared kids in crowded rooms looking for one person brave enough to say yes. Comment. We see you if you stand for protecting the innocent. Subscribe for more stories that prove humanity is still worth believing in. And remember, sometimes the scariest person in the room is the one with the biggest heart. Sometimes the person everyone else looks away from is exactly the one who will fight hardest for those who cannot fight for themselves. This was Jace and Mila's story. It started with 4 simple words: "Can I share this table?" It ended with 3 even simpler ones: "Welcome home, family."